Now, welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be looking at the results of the poll that asked you what rating or how many stars would you give the third season of The Mandalorian. We'll also then be reading and responding to some of the comments left on the poll, and once again, it will be a we. My wife is here, Sailor Naboo from our other channel. Just makes these discussion videos more interesting and easier, I believe.
Is it because you're discussing with somebody?
Exactly. All right, well, let's get to the results.
All right. Results of the poll on how many stars would you give Season 3 of Mandalorian. 4% gave it 5 stars, saying it was amazing. 26%, 4 stars, it was good. 43%, 3 stars, it was average. 19%, 2 stars, it wasn't very good. And 8%, 1 star, it was terrible.
And so when we do the math on that, that means The Mandalorian Season 3 average score was 2.99 stars, which actually puts it into last place for any Disney Plus shows or any seasons of a Disney Plus show.
But how?
I mean, I don't know how it scored quite that poorly. I don't think it was that bad. It's interesting when you compare it to, say, Season 2, the two polls side by side. I mean, 1% gave it 2 stars, 1% 1 star, only 2% 3 stars, 77% 5, and then 20 gave it 4 stars. I mean, that is... It makes it feel like, it makes me believe that the reason why Season 3 got rated so low is because Season 1 and especially 2 here were so good. It's more of a, instead of just saying this is flat out bad, it doesn't compare to the previous seasons kind of thing.
Could it have something to do with the fact that Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi both came out before this season and we saw some glaring flaws in both of those shows? Could that fan feeling have transferred somewhat onto Season 3?
Perhaps, though you do look at Andor's score, and it slightly edges out Season 1 of Mando. Though
Andor's on a different level. It is a...
Oh,
it doesn't have the same tone and feel as Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I feel like those were all trying to be much more like...
fun Star Wars?
Yes, they're supposed to feel more like the original trilogy. That's what they were going for. That was the accomplishment for Season 1 and Season 2 of Mandalorian especially. Andor went its own direction and did a different thing, and it saw success there.
Yeah, it was amazing for what it was. Whereas I think Season 3 of The Mandalorian does suffer some backlash to Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi not being what maybe people hope for. And also just Season 2, especially the finale, being something kind of incredible.
Absolutely, it was incredible.
Yeah, especially in comparison to this. I don't know. I am curious to hear what people think about this rating, if they think it's too low or if they, this is what you believe is accurate. I don't know. I was very surprised to see it finished behind Kenobi, to be honest with you. All right, so now let's move on to your comments, but not before once again just saying thank you to everyone who votes, comments, or watches these videos. Also, a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel over on Patreon, or both the channels, I should say. And now we kick it off, as usual, with the top-rated comment.
Top comment is from the Blue Pacific Boys. This season felt like a lot of good ideas being executed painfully bad. When you look at this season from a bird's eye view, it should be really cool. Din Djarin bathing in the water should be an epic journey. Reclaiming Mandalore should feel like a huge accomplishment the entire season has been leading towards. The results of these stories should have massive emotional weight, but even though these beats should feel these ways, they just don't. It feels like we spent the entire season wandering aimlessly and forgetting that Din was the main character. Even though those things did lead somewhere, they didn't feel like they did, and they hardly had any emotional impact when they got there. The ending left me feeling like, I like where we took the characters and the world, but I wish the way they got them there was done better.
I can agree with that. I don't think I hate how it ended. I don't have a problem with the happy ending. It seems like a lot of people were thinking that I and maybe others just didn't like the happy ending. Now, traditionally, I kind of prefer a bittersweet ending to a Star Wars show or movie, whatever it might be, which is what Season 2 pulled off extremely well.
It did. I liked the ending. It was a little bittersweet because for some reason, him adopting Grogu meant that he had to go and train him and couldn't stay with the other Mandalorians.
I was confused about the I pledged myself to Bo-Katan, but the next day I'm going to leave you.
Well, because Bo-Katan accomplished her mission, her journey, her armorer quest.
Yeah, but that's like just beginning. Like just because she has everybody following her for the moment doesn't... I mean, we saw the day before Paz and Axe are fighting over a game. You don't think there's going to be any more issues? She's going to have smooth sailing here on out? But no, I agree that what this season was lacking was that emotional impact. The finale of last season, and you can even subtract the whole Luke thing. Just the Din and, I guess, Din? Grogu and Jaren, the splitting of the two was so powerful. And this didn't have that same kind of level. I think they really thought that the adoption thing was going to hit harder than it did.
It just didn't feel like that because of the fact that the entire season, Bo was constantly calling him his son.
Yeah.
And they seemed to have the father-son relationship already. So I guess I didn't need them to come out and go, I officially adopt you. I thought that kind of emotionally already happened.
Yeah, exactly. It almost, in a weird sort of way, kind of ruined it. Because now you're like, they didn't really think of each other as father-son before this official moment, or what?
I kind of thought that him coming back to him in Book of Boba Fett was that.
Yeah, exactly.
I chose the family. Grogu chose his family. Din accepted him back with open arms. I thought that was the emotional payoff there. That was the family that was formed and chosen.
Exactly.
Let's move on to the next comment from Devil J. Wheat. It never ceases to amaze me how each time Bad Batch and Mandalorian were released together, the Bad Batch clutched it with extreme cohesive episodes and themes by the second half. I was more invested in a supposed kids show more than the live-action show. Sure, Bad Batch had filler too, but they could actually afford it with the longer season runtime of 16 episodes. Mando truly couldn't with an 8-episode season.
Bad Batch felt more cohesive and had a more impactful, speaking of to the last comment, a more emotionally impactful ending by a long shot.
Yeah, some of their twists were telegraphed far in advance. Cough, Sid, cough.
Sure.
Even if you really look at it, I almost feel like the Echo and Tech things were very forecasted in a way.
They were more in hindsight, though.
In hindsight. The Echo thing, though, beautiful. I think was forecasted much further in advance.
Yeah, when you can look back and see things that you missed that were kind of almost in plain sight and go, oh my God, how did we not see he was going to die? That's good storytelling. When it's there, but you miss it.
Whereas this season, there wasn't anything telegraphed because it just felt like things didn't line up quite right.
Well, it felt like we were waiting for something big to happen in the finale.
I think we were waiting for a big twist.
Not necessarily twist, but something. We have a lot of people, saying, oh, people are just mad because their big theories didn't turn out. We have to remember season 2 ended with Luke Skywalker showing up. And the parting of Grogu and Din, which again was kind of this, a high of Luke showing up. It's, oh my God, it's the Luke we always wanted to see right on screen. And then you have these two separating. It's just, there's so many emotions. There's so many, again, highs and lows and bittersweet. And this, it's just, well, nobody died, which isn't a bad, except for Gideon. And we have this kind of happy, small ending.
And for the record, I could care less if my theory is right, as long as I'm provided with a really interesting idea.
I think the Bad Batch finale shows that. There were people who theorizing about, I theorized heavily about, they're going to end up on Mount Tantus and they're going to save Crosshair. And I even said, wow, they blew my stupid theories or predictions out of the water with the ending.
It was actually better that they didn't tidy everything up with a little bow and say, here it is, your perfect season. I was much happier with the ending that they gave me.
Exactly. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. We didn't need to go to Mount Tantus and rescue Crosshair. You could build that up even more.
You can slow it down a second and really build something epic.
So it's not like your expectations not getting met immediately or automatically mean you're not going to like it. Sometimes you get pleasantly surprised. And it's not like the ending of, as you were saying before, we saw the Sid betrayal coming for the whole season. So it was things we kind of expected to happen, but still turned out well written and good.
Next comment from Earl Smith. It was ranging from average to below average. This season didn't seem to have a single overarching plot set up into the last 2 episodes. And Moff Gideon going out like a cartoon villain, complete with the over-the-top scream as he stands still, and the actual Looney Tunes ending minus the "that's all, folks," really killed my immersion.
Hey, at least he didn't say no or anything like that.
Did Gideon have a jetpack on at that point?
I think so. He flew in, didn't he?
Exactly.
No, I don't remember if he flew in at that, because he flew in initially in the 7th episode. He walked in for this one.
Yeah. I just was like, if he still had his jetpack,
I'm pretty sure he
could
did,
have tried to fly out of there.
Why would he have taken it off? Only Din Djarin seems to not have his jetpack when he really needs it.
There were several weird and cartoony things that were in the episode that we talked about in the Discord chat we had on Thursday.
Yeah.
One of my favorite topics was the hallway that Din had to fight through that had these sets of 2 warriors per hallway.
So much like the Phantom Menace, yeah.
Well, and I was joking because I was like, okay, so What if I'm in there and I'm in one of the suits and my job is to stand there all day over a hole in the ground leading to who knows where? Yes, I have a jetpack, so I'll be okay.
Should be, yeah.
Should be. But what if I have to go to the bathroom? They're going to have to let down each of those things individually now because I'm like, hey guys, really sorry. Have to go. I'll be back. And then you can put all your little things back up. Or do I have to wait for someone to come in, relieve me, and then I can go?
And then you can relieve yourself?
Yes. Like, what's the
protocol for having to go to the bathroom?
And why couldn't anyone else take those down and they could fight Din all at once?
Yeah, it was
just this random
R5 had kind of like hijacked the whole thing, so they could only come down at one at a time.
One at a time.
I think one of the other troopers was trying to take them down, but couldn't.
He said so, like, take this down, but nobody was there. Next comment from Igor Aprecio. I can't understand why the best episode of The Mandalorian was in the Book of Boba Fett. The action, the rhythm, the character development, all of that was better in a single episode than this entire season as a whole. For this season, I'd prefer to see all the Mandalore story without Grogu, Din Djarin and Bo-Katan teaming up and being an iconic duo, so we didn't miss Grogu. The two of them with the same objective but different versions or approaches, and left the re-encounter of Mando and Grogu for the last episode of the season, or for the fourth one. This season also needed a more developed Moff Gideon arc to fulfill a more dramatic finale. It felt like a very bland and a very easy resolution without any surprises, and they left us with a ton of ideas or concepts that never happened, like the Mythosaur, the mystery behind the armorer, Gideon's clones. I just hope that the next season is better written, so we all can continue to enjoy the Mando and Grogu travel. 2 stars. Sorry about my English. I hope I transmitted my thoughts well. Yes, you did.
Yeah, your English was better than I think most people who speak English natively.
Very well done.
Yes.
No, but I agree with a lot of things they said. Holding off on bringing Grogu back and letting Din and Bo really exploring the Mandalorian culture, reuniting 2 very different clans, that could have been really cool. Could have also, of course, given them more time to develop the Moff Gideon story, developing maybe the Mandalorians' hatred for them because of the Purge, what really happened, what really went down, what else happened.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think the biggest flaw of the show is it doesn't want to slow down. It has that approach of the George Lucas original Star Wars approach of throw you in the middle of the story, don't worry too much about the questions, and enjoy the ride, which I'm not saying that doesn't work, and it certainly worked in 1977 with Star Wars, but it's not 1977. People nowadays tend to prefer a little bit more of an elaborate story.
Think of what a missed opportunity it was to not show us a flashback scene of Bo-Katan and her Mandalorians fighting during the Purge. Watching her actually surrender to Moff Gideon, watching that betrayal as she sees him double-cross her. There could have been some really big emotional payoffs that upped the ante as Gideon as a villain, as well as Bo-Katan as this tragic heroine.
Yeah, imagine an entire episode devoted to the flashback where we can build Gideon's character and learn what his kind of motivation might be for betraying her. Like, he has no, as far as we know, he has no reason other than he's a bad guy for destroying Mandalore, for not keeping his word.
Well, and he clearly loves the Beskar armor. He wanted to, in his own way, look like the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
But we didn't see more of the whys, which could have been a really cool flashback episode of him maybe falling in love with their ways and their culture before ultimately turning on them.
Yeah, it just feels like the show doesn't want to take its time to slow down and to explore anything.
Think about it. If maybe even someone like Axe Wolves or Bo-Katan, because remember, they didn't like the heretics cult, the cult of the way. And they called them zealots, and well, they're not real Mandalorians because they were mostly foundlings.
Yeah, she said he's one of them when they first meet Din Djarin.
Think about it. That could have been a huge, amazing setup as to why Gideon wants to destroy and conquer the Mandalorians. Maybe he wanted so badly at one time to be one of them and was rejected because he is one of them. He is not a Mandalorian. He can't be.
What if he's a failed foundling or something?
There were a lot of really interesting things that I feel like now looking back are missed opportunities, and mind you, this is just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can like it just as it is, but I feel like it should have been a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it needed to be groundbreakingly epic and the most well-written story in human history, but you could put a little bit more. 5 minutes more each episode devoted to just exploring the characters a little bit is really all the show needs.
Mm-hmm. Next comment from The Jedi Storm. Everyone had their expectations too high. This is a generally good season with a few iffy episodes, but everyone wanted the next Revenge of the Sith or something, even though I was let down by the finale solely because I was expecting the next huge twist reveal, and instead we got a good ending to a good season. Not great doesn't mean bad.
I think part of the problem here is we've come to just accept that sometimes Star Wars isn't good, which has kind of been baked into the mindset for a while now. Like, I hear people all the time, well, Star Wars has never really been that good. Like, why do we accept that as fans? Why has that become part of our belief system in a way? That we just, oh, well, Star Wars isn't always good. Sometimes it's just bad and it's cheesy and we just accept that. It seems like a lot of fans want to make this excuse that since it isn't always good, we shouldn't expect it to always be good. Why shouldn't we have high expectations for it?
I agree that we should have high expectations. I very much respect anyone who just enjoyed the season and had a great time with it. I just wish I could have enjoyed it more. Whether it be because it didn't develop some of the characters in ways that I thought were extremely interesting or anything else. I just feel like if they would have taken their time and just given us a little bit longer, maybe the runtime of the episodes give us a little more information, this could have gone from just being kind of an average TV show into something more memorable.
Yeah, my point isn't that you can't have enjoyed it. I'm fine with people. I know there's a lot of people who are 100% satisfied, and that's great. My point is we've come to just kind of expect that sometimes it's going to be bad, and why do we just lower the standard when it isn't good? I mean, that's not to say you have to get all angry and rant and rave when it's bad. We have to accept sometimes, yes, they're going to miss the mark, but there seems to be certain fans who just like, well, why do you expect it to always be good? I don't know, maybe because Star Wars is...
Because we love Star Wars and we want it to always be good.
Yeah, it's a premier franchise owned by a billion-dollar company that can easily fund the greatest writers of our time if it really wanted to.
Well, and when something has inspired you since you were a kid, you are excited and you want it to be phenomenal. But when you grow up with something, we can't let our shows, things that we love, we can't just let them be okay.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make you a better fan to just accept anything. I feel like some people really feel like negative automatically means bad. Sometimes you have to be negative and passionately angry about something in order to make it better. I mean, Human history is filled with things that were bad that people got upset about and were made better because of it. I'm not trying to compare human history, the bad parts of human history to Star Wars, but...
If fans not being over the moon for this season inspires them to write a better season for the next one, so be it. That's what it should do. Yeah. It should tell you we're not as happy as we'd like to be because we loved the first two seasons. We passionately loved them. We just want you to live up to the potential those other two seasons managed. Next comment from TF Eric. It is a Star Wars show in a post-Andor era, so we know we can expect more from a show that was always going to be a problem. I didn't hate the show. The Doctor episode was interesting, and the last two were fun and action-packed. A lot of the episodes were fun in isolation, but the whole arc was slow at times.
Yeah, I think most of them in isolation work on their own. Just if you were somebody who wanted to watch something and you saw it and you're like, yeah, that was fine.
Yeah.
Curious about more. But he is right about being in a post-Andor era, which kind of goes back to what I'm saying before. Like, we know they can write Star Wars extremely well. And I'm not saying you have to write Andor, but you could write Mandalorian really well, too.
Well, like I said, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a letdown. Book of Boba Fett kind of also a letdown. Andor, inversely, was so good that it made this show go, wait, was that any better than those other two?
It does kind of, in hindsight, make you ask, wait a second, were those first two seasons really that good, or was it just...
I still think the first two seasons are very good.
I think the first two seasons are still definitely superior to this one. Much, much better.
I feel like, I know there were rumors floating around that this season suffered from like massive rewrites at the last minute or something because of the fact that they had to cannibalize it into part of
Rangers of the New Republic, and Gina Carano is gone, and
in the whole Book of Boba Fett, taking some of the episodes there because they're like, we have to fix this, we can't have Grogu gone. I feel like somebody stepped in and it just scrambled all of the eggs and made everything messy.
Yeah, it felt like, that's what it felt like. It felt like scrambled eggs. It felt like on their own, each individual egg maybe wasn't that bad. They were all sunny side up
at first. And then Disney came along with the spatula and said, nope, scramble.
Yeah, it just felt like a mess, like a scrambled mess at times. Even though, again, a lot of the individual episodes you can probably sit and enjoy. And again, I agree. Andor has upped the bar, which, again, I'm not saying this needs to be at all like Andor, but it still needs to be well written for what it wants to be.
Right. It doesn't need to have the tones of Andor, but it could have the good stories and character development that
Solid
Andor
story,
has
yeah.
without having that more mature tone.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go as hard as, say, Andor does with things. It can be a little more fun.
I shouldn't be walking around going, did Mando just kill that family? I shouldn't have to think that.
No, yeah.
But I should get some definite growth, development, and personality out of the characters. They're why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Last comment from Kaylee Anderson. I'm just going to let our dearest Princess Leia describe Mando Season 3. You do have your moments. Not many of them, but you do.
It had its moments. It certainly has its moments.
It does. There were definitely moments that I laughed or...
Cried.
During Paz's... I was tearing up at Paz's death.
Paz's death was actually the
that
only
hit me
emotional part
so
of the entire
hard.
season. That was the only point where I really was like,
Where
that
it
hit me
hits you.
somewhere. Yeah.
Because he was turning into a hero this season.
He was not who I thought he was.
No.
You saw him kind of changing from the guy who probably would have killed Din Djarin in his sleep to get the Darksaber, which
But at the
isn't much of
same
a story,
time,
but
remember him in Season 1. He led the covert out to save Din.
he did, yeah.
Even if they didn't always see eye to eye, he knew he was
This is
doing
the
the
way.
best for the covert. This is the way he followed the creed.
You were kind of confused and torn on this guy until you finally realized, like, wait a minute, he does some shady things. He's not always the best, but
wasn't shady.
he's good intended.
He didn't like Din. That was like it. It was like, hey, we're all
He
part
started
of the
to
same
trust Din
group,
in the
but
end,
he
though.
didn't like. Yes, he did because
and I
he
like
kind
that.
of learned.
You were kind of getting the impression he was with the Din way. Mm-hmm. Like when the armor and Bo-Katan shows up, or she shows up without the helmet on, and Paz looks to Din, and Din kind of gives the nod, like, yeah, we're gonna follow this, and he's like, all right, my boy Din says it's good, it's good.
Yeah, they kind of came to an
They
understanding.
were becoming bros, yeah.
And there was a whole Paz Vizsla storyline in there that was top notch.
Yeah, it was good. He had
I wish I could have seen that kind of story for all of them. Not that they should all die a hero's death, but I wanted that kind of story for every one of them.
Yeah, he had an actual arc in the season, despite the fact that the show never really focused on him. He probably had the second best character arc in the season behind Bo-Katan.
I thought you were going to say behind Grogu for a second. I was a little...
Nah.
It's like, here it comes.
What was
Yes,
Grogu's arc?
Yes.
Like, seriously.
Grogu's arc was that he is becoming a Mandalorian and learning their ways.
Yeah, he played darts and got officially
And
adopted.
learned how to track.
Yes, he saw somebody point at a screen and say, this is the planet, and then could fly to that, or told R5 to fly to that planet. Good job. No, I mean, I'm being a little more harsh than I should be.
You are.
He has some development this season, but I don't think enough to warrant his return already.
I think he could have stayed away from
Yes.
for just one more season to help
I almost-
showcase the Mandalorians, the lore of the planet.
I almost feel like the end of the season with them happy on their little ranch on Navarro was to kind of justify bringing them back together so soon. It's like, see, this is why we brought them back together, because we wanted to give them a happy ending right away. Whereas we could have brought them back could have brought Grogu back in season 4, done the same happy ending, and I think it's far more emotional and impactful there.
They could have still had that ending if maybe they would have shown during the season, during the end, like, let's say episode 6, we see the Grogu's choice instead of the Plaisir
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Absolutely.
Sure, leave the Bo-Katan stuff in at the end, but instead of the entire rest of it, show the Luke moments there. Put it all right there, and you see him, I'm going to go off and be with Mando now. Maybe you see him flying, he's with the, on the way to Navarro or wherever he thinks he could find him again, whatever. And he gets intercepted by Moff Gideon, and Gideon has him.
There you go.
Sure, yes, you might have to save him again, or you could have him rescue himself now that he's learned a little more about the Force, but they could reunite on Mandalore.
That would be cool.
And then they still could have had that adoption moment, which would have made more sense, because they would have come back together now, forming a real family, and going to stay in Navarro.
Yeah, I agree with one of those previous comments where they said the best episode of The Mandalorian Season 3 was in the Book of Boba Fett.
And I think it should have been in replacement for the
Episode 6 of this season.
But they still could have very easily left the bit at the end with the Mandalorians.
Yeah. All right, well, you know what? I think that's going to be all we got for you this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you thought of this season of The Mandalorian. Do you think that rating is a little low? Do you think that's just right? Or is it maybe too high? Whatever you think, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.